Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Biz Meds. We are neuroscience business coaches and your hosts for the show. My name is Saad.
My name is Darris, and for those of you who don't know us, we help businesses scale. For example, we helped one company scale from 60 to 90 million in only 18 months. Another client of ours actually increased revenue by 32% in under 18 months and not hiring any more people, and actually worked less in the business than they did before. We've actually had other clients become small business of the years in the areas that they
Win awards,
operate. Yeah, exactly. So again, we don't say it to impress you. It's more just so you understand that we have experience doing this and we've sorted through a lot of the neuroscience.
There's some credibility behind what we're saying. Yeah,
exactly. And the difference is we use neuroscience to help strip away the things and really get at the heart of what that needs to be for business owners. So Here we are, Biz Meds, give you the minimum effective dose for your business. Yep. So today it's really around, we want to ask you a question, and it's really around, as business owners, how many of you have actually felt that there's just always so much to do? You're just always overloaded with tasks. There's always seems to be so much to do, and that you feel like you're always sacrificing your long-term goals for all of the short-term, like really high, what seem to be burning demands every day. Mm-hmm. Now, how many business owners feel like that? And it's frustrating because you don't know what to prioritize. What are the things you should be doing and working on? Because every day it just feels like there's just so much to do, and it's overwhelming because is what you're doing the right thing? Are you actually solving the problems? Or why doesn't it ever feel better? Why doesn't cash flow ever improve? So with that, like asking that question, I think is really important because...
So one of the most important things that you could utilize as a framework that we talk about a lot, we've talked about it in one of our earlier episodes if you haven't seen it, but the reason why we're bringing that up is because this is something that most business owners deal with every single day and they don't know how to get out of it. So it is the framework of the Afterburner. And as many of you that have been around from the beginning will know what the Afterburner Framework stands for and what it entails and how you can actually implement it in your business. But let's just start with what it stands for.
Yeah. So before we do that, this is the revisit of the Afterburner Framework because many of you haven't been here from the beginning. But because it's such an important framework, we want to revisit it and make sure that, as always, like we said before, anytime we want to update things, that's where it is. So, we're going to dive in, talk about it. Yeah, what is it? It really is what it sounds like.
Yeah.
So when you think of Afterburner, right, the idea that should come to mind is a fighter jet. Right, because those are the ones. Those are the planes, the jets that have afterburners. Is those where you need a quick acceleration. You have the ability to really just hit that extra gas to really accelerate, gain a lot of velocity, a lot of speed. That's should be the vision or the mental image that comes to mind when we talk about the Afterburner Framework. And with that, it's really what are the key things that make up the Afterburner Framework? And really, it's do we want to lay it out one by one, or do we just want to say or just spell it out?
Yeah, I think let's just spell it out.
Spell it out.
Yeah.
Okay, so we spell Afterburner a little bit differently.
Yeah,
but
that's not because we don't know how to spell it.
Maybe in my case,
there's a reason behind it.
Yeah, it really was. When you look at it, like what are the three most important things that you need in order to create velocity and speed in your business, right? And it's attention, focus, and time. And that is the kind of the first pass of the Afterburner Framework. But we do layer something else in there, which we'll get to, and then we switch to spelling a little bit. But it's the same premise. Like that is, we look at it, if you have attention, so we'll define attention. Attention is the goal. It's where are you headed? It's where do you want to end up? Where do you want to be? Because that is kind of like your North Star. That's your direction. That's where you want to be. Mm-hmm. Focus is really the fuel. It's all of the mental energy that you are able to divert to that, to burn towards that kind of that attention, right? And where you want to be.
Right.
And time is always a function. And, if we think about time and, how long it takes you to get from here to your goal, right? That's a certain amount of time. And we can either make it much longer to get there, or we can condense those time frames. And it's also around time in that how much time are we utilizing for focus and attention. So we have time in a couple different layers there, but those are the three most important things. And with that, actually, if we can round up all those three together, no surprise, is we can introduce the actual afterburner, which is flow state. That's when we kind of condense all that together. And when we introduce that, that's that punch. That's the punch it chewy.
Yeah.
Boom. You accelerate like light speed outside.
Yeah.
So let's dive into each of those. What do you think?
Yeah. No, that's a great idea.
So for attention, I know we say that. I mean, that was a kind of really high level intro.
And you know, the funny thing is, again, I'm going to say this because it's not like I've never said this before. Everything is going to tie back to things we've talked about.
Absolutely.
So attention, what do we mean by attention? Attention is the understanding what it is that you're working towards. Like, what are you trying to get done? Clear out all the bullshit from all across, like, that you have on your plate, and focus on the one thing. Sorry, I'm using another one of the key attributes, but like if you have attention to the one thing that you're trying to work towards, that's the first one. Like, that's what you need. You need to understand what it is, get rid of everything else.
Yeah. And
identify.
And to tack onto that, we think about it in kind of the longer scale, which is, where do you want your business to actually be? Like, what are you actually trying to build?
Yes.
And what kind of lifestyle and all that, right? And I think what you were also then saying with that, so I'm just making sure we're being really clear, right? There's that part, but there's also also the part of, what do you need to focus, what do you need to work on to make sure that enables that, right?
Exactly.
And so that's where we would say, oh, well, if we look at our scaling playbook from 60, 90 million, 18 months, like, one of the key steps of that is just identifying the constraint.
Right. Yeah.
Right. That feeds in perfectly because that helps understand where you need to, like, where the attention needs to be, what it is that you're going to then go to the next step, which is focus. Yep. And with focus, it's, we talk about, it's the mental energy, but there's more to it. It sounds, we oversimplify that because you just got to focus on that.
Yeah.
But in the meantime, you are still, like, depending on what size or what business you're running, and if it's just you running it or there's you and a partner running it, right? It changes the dynamic a little bit around how much dumb work are you doing?
Yeah.
How much other things are you doing? How many things are happening inside your business? I'll give you an example. And this is a common conversation I have with clients is, we have people in these manager roles or leadership roles, but they continually come to us as the owners and ask what they should be doing. And I'm going to guarantee you there's so many of the people that are listening right now, and so many of the entrepreneurs are in the exact same boat where we hire people because we think we're bringing them in to solve a problem, but they just come in and they want to be told what to do. And it's at that point, why did I hire you? Because I hired you to come in to solve a problem, but you're essentially looking for me to direct you. And if that's the case, I don't need you in the business. You're just creating more operational drag in the system. And you can choose to either cut them loose, find someone else, or you can choose to grow and build that person. It's the buy or build kind of dichotomy.
Yeah.
It's either go out, find new talent, and find someone who's been able to do that and demonstrate that they have and bring them in to help solve that problem. Or you have to then implement a series of skills of coaching someone to grow them inside the organization to do that, and stop doing that behavior, but start doing the behavior where you show up and you are providing value and saying, here's an issue. Here's the 3 ways I think we could solve this. Here's my recommendation. I think so. What do you guys think about that? That's a much more effective conversation to have someone versus, Saad, you show up to me and say, hey, what should I do today for my job? that you hired me to be a really skilled person in.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So I use it as an example of those are the types of things that disperse and capture our focus and really spread our focus too thin. And where we end up doing a lot of things, like I think, we talked about before, like if you want to talk about, hey, I don't have the time to focus on something, it's like, look at your screen time. It's probably, I've been called out on that before. It's like, well, go look at your phone. Oh, yeah, well, I just found another 5 hours a week.
Yeah.
I could be working on something.
Yeah, exactly. I got to be honest though, like in the last little while, so I get the weekly reminders of like what my this is completely sidebar. In the last 2-3 weeks, my screen time's been less than an hour.
It's amazing
for the entire week.
That's amazing.
But that's also because I'm
also
flat out. Well, the other thing is I'm stuck in this whole so the reason why this is this topic hits home is because a lot of entrepreneurs are stuck in I got to do everything that's important today.
Yes.
And then you don't end up doing what you need to do.
Yeah.
So yeah. Anyway, it's just as
this,
we were talking.
This is as much for us as it is anybody else, right? Because the more we talk about this, the more it's like, oh, we reinforce this behavior for ourselves because we are just the same as everybody else. It's not like you get to a certain magical place and these things, but you still need that constant reminder. You still need to work on these things. It's the building of that skill. You don't get good at it unless you do the reps.
Yeah.
And that's what it is. And that's a hard thing to do sometimes.
Exactly.
So this framework we developed because it was really what are the common things that are really going to make it important or help people understand how do I actually focus on those things? So really breaking down, I know we talked about the Afterburner Framework early on in the podcast, but it's probably high enough level where I can get it, but now we're kind of diving into each of these things. So the focus part is saying no to a lot of things.
Yeah.
And so another story with one of the clients is, they have really understood now by implementing the 1 month day, they understand just now how much low value work that they were engaged in day to day. And they're now starting to implement it much more often and much more frequent. So now their frequency and their condensing time frames much faster and faster and faster because now they're understanding, oh wow, so many of the things that we're doing they're no value. And a lot of things that we feel are burning issues every day, they work themselves out if you allow them to. But if you this is one thing I'll attach this to Jerry Colonna, who wrote Reboot, The Art of Leadership and Growing Up. And it's really around the one question, the most poignant question in that one of the most important questions I got from him was, how am I complicit in creating the conditions that I say I don't want? And so when you start to be aware of you actually inadvertently, you're just by trying to be helpful sometimes, you actually train people to not think, right? Because you're so accessible, you train people to behave just to come to you and ask the question, I need this, versus having a little bit of resistance. So it causes them to solve the problem
themselves. Yeah,
exactly. And so I find that one behavior in business is probably one of the biggest time killers is because we're so accessible that people we don't train them to think for themselves. And so we inadvertently, by mistake, not intentionally, create that behavior. We say we don't want it, but we don't realize we're actually contributing to the same thing and enabling it, right?
Yeah. It's funny you say that because then there's also the layer of the fixed and the learner mindset, or fixed or growth mindset, right? Because the fixed mindset will be well, I know I'm going to get an answer if I just go up to the person. I'll just get the answer from them. The learner mindset's going to be well, I need to learn how to fish myself now at this point. Because if you want something else, and those are the people we're talking to, is because those are going to be the ones that are your entrepreneurs, right? Or are looking to find ways to improve existing processes or find ways to, have an Afterburner framework added to their business so they can do more, right?
So that's a lot of how that idea of focus
Yeah.
is, and as a result, like focus and time become very, like all three of them are just so connected, so
Interchangeable,
intertwined that if like it's a three-legged stool, right? Super secure all together.
Yeah.
If you remove one, like it falls over immediately. So the time
Yeah.
part, as we get into that, is two things, which is, we didn't really talk about this the first round, but now it's the time the time it takes you to achieve the goal, like to get where you want to be, but also the time you feel you actually have available.
Yeah.
And the focus and time are really connected there, because the more you're able to say no to things, the more time you're going to have, and also the more mental energy you're going to be reclaimed to do and to put into that and for that activity.
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny because, like, again, it goes in they all go through in a line. Like, you put your attention to something, then you just focus on it, and now you have to spend time on it.
Yeah.
Or you put your attention towards it, you focus on it, and really do it, and then you save a lot of time, right?
Yeah.
Like, it applies both ways.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That is exactly it. So it's kind of a it's a mind bender a little bit.
Yeah.
Now, so we talk about all of that, and I think, if you're addressing the things that are taking your focus and dispersing your focus, well, then as a result, you find a lot more time.
Yeah.
And that is how you do reclaim a lot of time and horsepower to get into things. And you have to do that subtraction first before you can start to, but that first part is understanding, okay, where is it I'm going? You have to have that direction. You have to understand what the constraint is. Then you have to strip away the stuff that's actually preventing you from doing that. And by doing that, we kind of like relayer in the attention into because if you just have focus, right? Yeah. And kind of notionally where you need to go, we relayer in, we actually dive into that attention again, and we drill down into really clear goals.
Yeah.
And we layer that with focus, and guess what we get? We get the second F in Afterburner, which is the actual Afterburner effect, which is flow state.
Yeah.
And that's why it's so important. And that's why those all work together. You don't get it. You can't just like throw flow state in there. You actually have to go through that process. And it's just like a normal jet engine. It's actually that all of the energy that you're now put into the system, you can now reignite. And that's the Afterburner. It actually reignites the fuel and air on the back end and creates so much more force to give you so much more velocity. That's what flow state does for you. That's why this framework is so important, because you can just rerun it over and over and over, and it will help you cut through the prioritization. It helps you prioritize, it helps you understand where you're going, but it also helps you develop a clear plan for that. And then hopefully I'm not going too fast, but it's when you hit the Afterburner, now we're collapsing time frames, because we're talking now, how long is it going to take me to achieve this? Well, because our productivity, creativity, output is so much higher, and we're going in the right direction, we're going so much faster, we actually collapse time frames.
Yeah.
It's, again, say it again, hit it, Chewy. Right? And you see the stars streak by because you're going so fast. That's how you create that velocity in your business, is the Afterburner Framework that we do that. And then with that is the other playbooks come into play. So the scaling framework of identify your constraint.
Yeah.
Right? You have to like pull back all the stupid work you're doing.
Yeah.
You reclaim your attention, or you reclaim your focus and your time. You identify what the constraint is. Cool. And then you prioritize going after that. You break that down. And now all you just wash, rinse, repeat, do that same process over and over and over, with the understanding that a lot of the things that you're doing kind of day to day aren't that important. A lot of us have just created the environment that we say we don't want with our behavior.
Yeah. Constantly enabling the bad things that you don't want around by catering to them and just doing them yourselves. I remember working with one of the clients, and like they just felt like they were the only ones that could solve all the problems, and they were just never enabling their team to learn how to fish.
Yeah.
And then every time somebody would come over, they would just they're just huff and puff and get annoyed because, you know what, this person is not going to be able to solve it anyway, and they don't have the skill sets to do it, and I'm just going to do it myself. And then they go ahead and do it themselves, and then they come back and complain is like, oh, my team doesn't know how to do anything. And it's like, it's just a vicious cycle for every single different thing that they take on.
Yep.
Yeah. So anyway, it just reminded me of like this never ending cycle that you are perpetually enabling and constantly in this cycle of enabling it. And then you get pissed off that everything around you is like not the way you want it to be.
Yeah. And then this is where we help create the awareness that that's what's happening. That's the root cause of that, so that you can start to be aware. And by the way, like I know for us, it can seem like as we're doing these, it feels like we're talking the same thing over and over and over again. And it actually, a couple of days ago, one of the coaching clients, we were having a conversation, and they were saying how it's amazing when they're talking to their team, the expectation is they want someone to hear what they say and get it immediately and act on it.
Yeah.
Which is funny because, I mean, everybody wants that.
Yeah.
The reality is, you know,
it works. Yeah.
it sometimes takes years to hear the message in over and over and over, many different ways, saying the same thing, different ways, slightly different angles, additional context. All these things have to be in place for it to finally connect. And it connects in that moment. You're like, oh my, like we've been talking this for fucking years.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
But that's just not how it works. It's just like when you're a parent and I say this, after I had gone through separation and was going through divorce and things like that, it was hard for me, or as I gained better understanding and awareness of my behaviors that was contributing to how my very young children were acting at the time, I realized how emotionally reactive I was.
Mm.
And so I made a very conscious decision to become much less emotionally reactive. And that helped me in many areas. But my expectation was, hey, I'm reacting differently. Shouldn't my children now react differently to me?
Wow.
And that's not how it happens.
No.
It's a long-term process to help people unlearn that other stuff, but also give them enough context moving forward that now you've changed the environment for them. And that's the same thing that happens with our teams in business. It's the exact same process.
Yeah.
We think things are just going to magically, we hear something and make sense and boom. That's where you have to continually work on that type of thing to make sure that it's kind of reinforcing and create that. And it can be frustrating because it feels like we say the same thing over and over. And then, I watch Alex or whoever, and I'm like, oh, wow. Like if you go back and watch all his sales videos, I mean, he says the same thing. He uses the same stories over and over and over. Because not everyone has heard the message. Yeah. Not everyone has heard the message enough. Yeah. Nor will they.
Yeah.
And as we update and get better, then we need to update those messages. But not enough people have heard that message, and you haven't heard it enough. We haven't heard it enough. It's like doing a sales presentation. If you feel like you're saying the same thing over and over, it's the first time that person's ever heard it, or it's the first time they heard something just slightly different. Makes sense. But day to day, you've said that same thing 5 times, and it just feels like it's getting old.
Yeah, exactly. It's funny because like it's kind of something I just went through recently where there was some hesitancy around presenting something for a client, and the leader of the presentation was like, I don't know, I feel like this is not going to hit. It's just hasn't. There's no way like people don't know about this yet. I was like, well, just because we live in this world and we get to see it every single day doesn't mean like
exactly.
Yeah.
So it was more just that conversation for us, right? Because I know it feels like, sometimes like I feel like you're saying the same thing, but there's a reason why. Yeah. And many of you'll hear us, but it's because you haven't gotten the message. We still need to get the message, and we're going to continue to do that because that's what we're here for.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so today we've covered the Afterburner Framework and why this framework is one of the most important frameworks in business that you'll ever need. And when you understand and when you're feeling like you're continually bombarded with things, it's a reminder that you're still doing a lot of stuff you don't need to be doing. There's probably a lot of ways you are creating the conditions in your business that you say you don't want, but there is a way through, and the Afterburner Framework is a very important part of that to help you reclaim a lot of that mental energy and that time and where you need to go so you can accelerate towards your goal, right? Accelerate towards what you got into business for.
Yeah.
So with that, we're going to close out. Remember, we're Biz Meds. We're your hosts. I'm Darris.
My name is Saad.
We're your neuroscience business coaches here to help you scale your business in record time. If you've been with us since the beginning, thank you from the bottom of our hearts. To our moms, we love you. We can't thank you enough. If you just joined us, please go back, watch all the videos, like, share, subscribe, whatever it is. We're obviously not sponsored, so we're just doing this for you and hopefully help give you the minimum effective dose you need for your business. And remember, you're just one day away from the life you've always dreamed about. We're going to see you in the next episode.